Turn me up just a little bit. Yeah, it's that man space vibe. Step in the zone, microphone check. Russ and Les got the real intellect. Talk smooth like jazz on a late night set. With a convo deep and the topics connect. From the struggles to the wins, they address it with grace. Drop lines so cool, you can feel the bass. Two kings of the craft, and you know the rest. Kick back, pour a drink, welcome to the space. You go chillin' with Russ and Les. You go chillin' with Russ and Les. You go chillin' with Russ and Les. Hang out, cause now you vibing with nothing but the best. Space forever.
Welcome in to another edition of the Man Space Podcast. Now, this is the voice of Russ, and this is another edition of the Russ and Company series where I take the time to interview some people, just amazing people all across the globe. And today is no different because Man Space Nation, today my guest is a clinical psychologist and the founder of the Royal Oasis Psychotherapy Institute. With over 15 years of helping thousands of people take back control of their focus, emotions, and decision-making, he brings a powerful mix of science and real-world mental performance tools. He's worked on the front lines of trauma care in high-pressure environments, and he is the host of the long-running podcast, Meditations, where he has turned deep psychological insight into practical everyday strategies. Manspace Nation, this is a conversation you definitely don't want to miss. And welcome in my guest, Dr. Gregory T. Obert.
Hello, Russ.
Hello. How
Thank
are
you so much for having me. And I gotta say, that intro song is just incredible. I love listening to it. It is so catchy, and I feel honored to be on the air right after such an incredible song, and the very warm intro, of course, as well.
You know, it's funny because when the song plays, I'm really trying not to dance while I'm sitting here because I'm like, I know they can see me dancing. So I'm just like, let me just I'll try to keep it as minimal as possible while I'm moving around. But yeah, that song is very, very catchy. I love it. So, but thank you so much. And thank you for spending time with me here. So if you could just kind of share with the Manspace Nation a little bit about yourself and how did you get into the world of psychology?
Yeah, well, it's sort of a standard story that you would hear from mental health practitioners. Typically, people get into mental health for one of two reasons. Either something bad happened to them,
right,
or they got some help from somebody and then they wanted to sort of return the favor. And in my case, it was a bit of both. So when I was in high school, my parents ended up getting divorced. And at that time, it was very, very difficult for me. I was struggling a lot in school. And I ended up seeing a therapist myself. And she was absolutely wonderful. She really helped me put things into perspective, gave me that space to work through everything that I was thinking and feeling. And coincidentally, at the same time, which is very odd for high schools, at least from what I've heard, we also had a psychology course offered. So I took a high school psychology course. And between both of those things, I had a sense of this is what I want to do. And once I had that, there was no looking back.
Wow. You know, and to figure it out that early on, because a lot of times in high school, we don't have a clue. Our biggest thought is to graduate. That's it.
Very true.
So just to figure out what you want to do at that point in your life, man, that is fantastic. And especially when you get into a point of knowing it that early, then going to college and studying that field, because so many of us, we graduate college and don't work in our fields. You know, that adds on like added stress to try to find a career, just to do something in general, just to pay the bills, keep a roof over your head. You know, with that, I mean, we talk about stress on this show and emotional health and things. What do you feel is some of the biggest ways as we could alleviate some of the stress that we deal with in our lives? I'm jumping right into the deep end
I was
with
going to
this.
say, well, here's your simple answer. Just stop it, right? There you go. Answer your question. No, of course, it's
Yes.
a little bit more complicated than that.
I'm just going to tell my wife, stop it. No.
That's right. I'm sure it will work really well for you.
There will be a new host on the Man Space podcast next week after I try that one.
We'll salute you, Russ, and say, wish you well in the afterlife. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, stress is one of those terms that, I hear a lot. And I haven't often had a consistent definition thrown at me. So I like to use this definition with all of the clients that I work with. And it's this: stress is when demands outweigh resources.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes the most sense to me because, of course, we all have demands on our lives. We all have that pressure. And when we have the necessary resources, we're fine. We can handle it. It's no problem. It's when we start to lose out or not have those resources to still meet those demands that things start to get a little bit tricky. And of course, we can do that for a little bit. I suspect you and your listeners as well have been in spaces where sometimes you just didn't quite have it in you, or you think you didn't have it in you, and you just pushed a little bit more anyways, and you're able to get through. But if you're someone who's doing that chronically and just scraping the bottom of the barrel day after day, week after week, you're going to find yourself in some really dicey territory.
Yeah. I love that definition and how you put it, because that is essentially life in general. I mean, we look at so much of what's going on today, from gas prices to food prices, all that's increasing, and the wages are not going with it to help cover that. So a lot of people are starting to struggle and start to feel that added pressure and stress going on. So that is, to me, that's the perfect definition of it. But I want to ask you this one. Being a clinical psychologist and helping people deal with focus and things like that, what is your opinion when it comes to medicine and this prescriptions that a lot of doctors give to help deal with attention deficit and different things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, huge topic.
Yes.
Now, I suspect it is specifically ADHD. Are we talking just kind of psychotropics in general?
In general, not so much just in general, just ADHD, but just in general.
Yeah. So the research is pretty clear on medication. 25% of people only need medication and they thrive, and that's it. They're good.
Right.
25% of people only need talk therapy and they're good. 50% of people need a combination of both. So I think there's a lot of people out there that we tend to kind of be in very binary with the meds. It's like, go all meds or go, no meds.
Right.
I kind of think about medication as more like a crutch, and maybe you need it for a little bit of time to kind of get through whatever it is that you're working through, possibly in combination with some sort of talk therapy.
Right.
But after a while, you may not need it. So it's okay to get off it. The problem is, I think what you were speaking to, which is a lot of medical doctors, and this includes psychiatrists as well, because they're MDs, they don't really know much about talk therapy, nor are they supposed to. I mean, they don't go to school for that. Although I do get a little judgy with the psychiatrists, because I can't tell you the number of times I've run into psychologists who are asked to teach psychotherapy courses, and how these psychiatrists just sleep through the classes or just don't show up at all. So they're supposed to know how to do it, but they don't always. So of course the incentive is there to just prescribe a medication,
Yeah.
and being that our culture is very instant gratification much of the time, okay, well, I'm just going to
Mhm.
use this pill and I'm going to feel better. It's a very slippery slope for many people. Now, if you happen to have a medication that works for you, it evens
Mhm.
you out. Maybe you've been on medication, you're able to get off it. Maybe you need to go back on it for a little bit. That's okay. But I think if people just tend to go, oh, I'm going to go to my doctor, I'm going to get a medication, and then I'm going to be fine, unless you're part of that 25% of the population, it's
Mhm.
probably not going to be enough.
Wow. A lot of times I do feel that, sometimes the medication is not necessarily needed, and sometimes some doctors may not spend enough time with the patient to get really to know. It's almost like a, here, just throw this at them and they'll be all right, type of deal. It's kind of my opinion from what I've seen with some cases. And it becomes a little, I think that goes back and adds even more stress into a situation for everybody who's around the person, you know
Mhm.
trying to make
Well, I
sure.
would
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
uh, just to jump in there, I would say that
Yeah.
it's not really your opinion. I mean, that tends
Mhm.
to be the case, right? I
Mm.
mean, psychiatrists are incentivized to really prescribe medication, A, because
Mm.
that's something that they're allowed to do with their privileges as MDs, but then
Right.
B, what's going to make more money, right? It's going to be,
Mhm.
I'm going to cram 3, 4 people into an hour, see them for 15,
Yeah.
20 minutes. How's everything going? Great, cool, medication, fine. Oh, you need a change, or, and then I'll see you in 3 months. So
Mhm.
that does tend to happen for a lot of people that
Yeah.
are only relying on medication.
Wow. 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 Well, stress is something that everyone, I guess, feels that they understand. But one of the things that I've read up on you, you say that it actually quietly takes control of our decisions. Now, what does that really look like in everyday life?
Well, it can be insidious. So,
Mhm.
what might start out as, okay, maybe I'm feeling just a little tense, can actually turn
Mhm.
into uh, what I've called in the past amygdala hijack, or the emotional part of your brain taking over. So,
Okay.
I mean, let's start with just, let's say, a typical day. Maybe
Mhm.
you wake up a little bit late, or maybe you're a little slow starting, and
Mhm.
you hop on the road, and of course there's traffic, because of all days maybe there's a minor fender bender, and naturally everybody's got to stop and look at it and go 10 miles an hour rather
Right.
than just keep on going. And you've taken some time off work recently, so of course you're late to the office, and your boss is
Mhm.
giving you the side eye, thinking that you need to be on time, especially after you've had all this time off.
Right.
And then you sit down, open your email, and you have a ton of emails from all the time off you had. I could keep
Yeah.
going, but I
Yeah.
suspect you and maybe some of your listeners have been in this exact position. Heck, maybe they're in this exact position now as they listen to this
Yeah.
episode.
Mhm.
What can start out as, okay, well, I can handle being, a little bit slow today, maybe a racing thought or two, you know, which could be, I can handle it. I might have the
Mhm.
resources in that moment. It could also be, God, what is wrong with me? Like, what? I should have known,
Right.
but I should have gone to bed earlier.
Right.
I should have, and now I'm bringing the hammer down on myself and judging myself for it.
Yeah.
That can then spiral a little bit more with the added
Mhm.
traffic jam, which can then spiral a little bit more with the side eye from the boss, to the
Right.
point where it's almost like death by a thousand cuts, as they say, right? So these little these little pieces of stress add up to the point where your anxiety, which is just a clinical term
Yeah.
for fear, your
Mhm.
anxiety is going to start to raise. And I say you're able to operate logically in your 0 to 7 range. Because
Mhm.
typically when you're in that range, the logical part of your brain, this is the most neuroscience I'm going to give you and your audience. The space right behind your forehead is the prefrontal cortex, and that has
Okay.
to do with all of our decision making, our planning. And when we're in 0 to 7, that signal is still pretty loud. It's able to calm the emotional centers of the brain, or at least regulate it enough that we can get by. As soon as you find yourself at 8, that part of the brain gets very quiet, and the emotional part, which is in the very center of your skull, it just takes over. And now, instead of responding to the stress, thoughtfully, consciously, you're just on autopilot. You're reacting.
Yeah.
And this becomes, I'm not even really thinking about what I'm doing. I'm just so worked up and activated and stressed that I'm just going to do whatever I need to do to get that emotion out, which might be snapping at people. That might mean isolating. That might mean trying to hurry up and get through your work. And of course, it's not going to stay at work. If it is coming out at work, it's going to come home to, well, if you're living by yourself, it's going to come out in, some negative ways, extreme ways. Could be like drinking by yourself, right? Even with family, it might be not wanting to spend time with them, being short with them. So stress is something that can impact us on the daily, and it can start out very small, but ultimately have pretty lasting effects.
So what are some of the signs? Because, we all have loved ones, we all have close friends, we all have people that that may count on us, but or from children that, what are some of the signs that stress is actually driving the wheel instead of us?
It's a great question, because I think a lot of times, especially if you're a high achiever out there, you're going to think that, well, I'm able to handle this. I can work through it. It's fine. It's fine. Especially as men, right? We tend to be like, it's fine. I can handle it. Rub some dirt on it. Just keep going.
As we like to say, put some tussin on it.
Yeah, there you go. But unfortunately, that's not going to make it go away. So what are some signs? Well, one of the common ones is you start to push away fun in your life. So those things that you used to enjoy, you made time for, whether it's going to the gym, maybe it's playing sports, going to the theaters, whatever it is, you start to do less and less of that because, well, you have so many other things going on, and those are now going to take priority.
Right.
Another common sign is overstimulation. So it sounds ridiculous, but I can't tell you the number of clients I've talked to about this. They are dealing with so much stress that when they get home, all they want to do is just stare at a wall for like an hour.
Oh, wow.
Because there's just so much on their plate, and they're making so many decisions. They're dealing with so many people who may or may not be competent in what they're doing. And so I need time away from everything. I don't want to look at a screen. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm just going to stare at the wall for a little bit until I can decompress. Excuse me.
Wow.
Another thing, I'll give you this last one, a third thing. I could keep going, but the third thing that you're going to notice when you're chronically stressed, you're going to notice those physiological changes in your body. And because we're always in our bodies, we're not necessarily always aware of the changes because, again, they're subtle and they can build over time. Are you clenching your jaw a lot more? Are you storing tension more so than you normally do? So for me, it's in my shoulders, right? I know that if I'm walking around like a scarecrow, then there's something going on. So if you're able to pay attention to these signs, it's not, of course, a surefire way that you're dealing with too much stress, but it is, they are likely signs. They are signs that you are likely dealing with too much stress.
Wow. Last week, I interviewed Dr. Gloria Vanderhurst, and we were talking about that just a little bit as well. And that just made me think of the physiological changes that you go through. It can also be weight gain. It can be something as acne and things like that you're starting to see. In some cases, it could even be hair loss and things of that nature that all play into it. Wow. I was also telling her, well, you made me think of, I used to work for a company and I had been there for a long time, but I got to the point where I was just so exhausted and so burnt out with it that when I would pull into the parking lot in the mornings, I would sit there in my car and just have to close my eyes and meditate for 10 to 15 minutes
Hmm.
just to try to make it through the day, to give myself the strength to even walk in the building because I didn't want to be there. And it was just that bad. And when my wife and I, when we started dating, we would give ourselves 10 minutes. Okay, you got 10 minutes. Tell me about your day, get it all out. And she gets hers out, I get mine out. And after that, we don't talk about work anymore. It was just that was the only way that I could deal with it, was just, all right, let me get it out. And now it's out, it's done. Let me move forward. And it that was my coping mechanism for it. It was just, otherwise I probably would have just completely just lost it over those years. It just, you think of it to a balloon and you keep pushing air into that balloon, and sooner or later that balloon is going to pop if you don't start letting some of it out, man.
It sure is. And I have to say, the techniques you were using, although they maybe
Mhm.
didn't feel like they were enough at the time, those are some pretty high level techniques that you were doing. I
Yeah.
mean, spending time meditating, trying to get your focus
Mhm.
back is one thing,
Mhm.
but then also having someone you could talk to vent
Yeah.
to get all that negative nonsense out, but then putting it away for the rest of the
Yeah.
evening. That is not always easy to do, yet it is something that can be
Yeah.
extremely helpful because
Yeah.
imagine if someone, even with the meditation, just came home and just wanted to rage and kind of vent for the next
Mm.
hour. I mean,
Right.
that's a whole hour out of the day. And then
Yeah.
maybe, as the night goes on, oh, this thing reminded me of that other thing that I forgot to tell you about at work. And now we're
Mhm.
right back on work. And it's,
Right.
now we're spending upwards of 1, 2 hours
Right.
just simmering in this
Yeah.
negativity. And
Yeah.
understandable, if you have a job where you're feeling burned out, it's also
Mhm.
not always going to help you through that burnout.
Yeah, that's so true. Especially when you look at it as you're in the office and you're getting off work at 5, and now you're coming home and you've spent 45 minutes to an hour in the car in traffic to get home. And now you're home in front of your spouse and you got kids there that you got to deal with, but yet you have this negative energy that you have not gotten out. And
Mhm.
now the kids are starting to feel the brunt of all of this. And yeah, it can be a very dangerous cycle if we don't deal with it in the right ways.
Agreed wholeheartedly, and exactly what you said too, especially if you got kids, they pick up on that stuff.
Mm,
Even if you don't
yes.
have kids, your significant other
Right.
is likely gonna know,
Right.
"Hey, something's kinda off with you."
Yeah. Yeah, even your pets know. I mean,
Very
your
true.
dog. Yeah, I know my dog used to come in and look and say, "Oh, daddy's home," and look at me and like, "Oh, let me go the other way."
I gotta give
But
him those 10 minutes.
give me that's right. Give me
Gotta
10 and
stare
we're
at that
good, and then
wall.
I can play with you. That's right. But a lot of times when it comes to stress, we are way more reactive in our decision makings. Why do you feel that that is the case?
Well, it goes back to what I mentioned a little bit earlier, right? That
Mhm.
when we are at a high enough emotional intensity, that
Right.
8 or higher,
Yeah.
that's just natural. It's human nature that we're just going to
Mhm.
react. Now, if we're talking about even the 0 to 7, maybe we're still able to have some logic, but we still find ourselves reacting. I
Mhm.
mean, it it kind of comes down to just the simple idea that nobody likes to be uncomfortable. Nobody likes to be in a space where they're just feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling flooded with all sorts of responsibilities and not enough resources. And sometimes, oftentimes, people don't even recognize what's happening. So there's this
Right.
internal battle going on, and then somebody just completely innocently is going to step in and maybe ask you for something, or even just
Right.
want to have a conversation. How was your day? When that's the last thing that you want to talk about because it just drove you bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't have those outlets
Yeah.
to get out whatever is going on with us, it's just going to make things that much worse. Again, it's not
Yeah.
going to necessarily fix the situation. Just like when you were talking about speaking with your wife, it didn't fix your
Mm-hmm.
job for you,
No.
but it did give you that space to release some of the pressure. And so if
Mm-hmm.
someone's out there dealing with this stress and they don't have that, yeah, they're
Yeah.
just going to start reacting
Mm-hmm.
even when they don't necessarily mean to do that.
Yeah. When you're in that reactive space and stress is already hijacking your thinking, what's the first move that people should make to kind of interrupt that pattern?
Yeah. So this is going to sound real woo woo, right? And because I know this is a huge buzzword out there and everyone
Okay.
talks about it. And I'm going to try to convince you and your listeners that this is actually the best thing that you can do in those moments. The
Okay.
word I'm thinking of is mindfulness. So I know
Okay.
everyone's
All
got a
right.
program, everyone's got a seminar, pay me $1,000. I get it.
Mhm.
I'm going to save you and your listeners thousands of dollars on mindfulness seminars because I'm going to tell you everything that they're going to tell you right here for free.
Okay.
Here we
All
go.
right. Let's go.
Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose to the present moment non-judgmentally. I'll say it again for
Mm,
those taking notes. Paying attention on purpose to the present moment non-judgmentally. And by non-judgmentally, I mean focusing on the facts of the situation as they
right.
are, not as we want them to be.
Right.
Essentially, this idea of mindfulness is being aware of what's happening with us, within us, around
Mm,
us, in the moment. And that, again, that sounds so basic, like, duh.
yeah.
I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I am trying to
Right.
tell you what works. To sort of draw a parallel to this for anyone familiar with a 12-step program,
Hmm.
step 1 of 12 is recognizing that there's a problem. Now, there's 11 more steps after that, but you
Yeah.
can't do any of those steps unless you
Until you
recognize there's an
recognize.
issue. And
Yeah.
so I can't change my reactivity to stress if I'm not aware that I am stressed. If
Mm,
I'm just living my life on autopilot day in, day out, because maybe I was never taught how to look inside
yeah.
myself, check on my thinking, check on how my emotions are impacting my body.
Hmm.
Maybe when I work with the veterans, we say, I'll censor myself for the show, but you get a case of the effets, right? Just, I don't care. I'm not, I know this is bad for me, but I'm just going to do it
Right.
anyways because F it, right?
Right.
So whether it's because you don't have the skills or you just don't care in the moment,
Hmm.
if you're not mindful, you're just going to continue to react.
Gotcha.
So, step 1 of anything is identifying how you perform under pressure and what are some common signs for you personally that you're feeling stressed. I gave some
Yeah.
generic ones earlier. Your other guest also mentioned some great clues.
Hmm.
Once you're able to find those, you can make changes. Now, if
Yeah.
you're saying to yourself, okay, Greg, that sounds great, but I don't really understand how to be more mindful during the day because
Mm,
this sounds very woo woo. I have to be on the go. I have so many things to
right.
focus on. Well, that's the thing. Mindfulness doesn't need to be, like being a monk on a mountain somewhere and being up there for hours to, be mindful.
Right.
You actually touched on this a little bit already, Russ, when you said,
Mhm.
hey, I'm going to spend 10 minutes just being with myself, being present, and not focusing on anything else.
Yeah.
we can start to build these mindfulness muscles by doing little things. So, classic example I use, I suspect you and hopefully your listeners as well brushed their teeth this morning. So, while they were brushing their teeth, I doubt very many of them were feeling the weight of the toothbrush, tasting the flavor of the toothpaste, feeling the bristles on their teeth, on their gums. They're probably doing that on autopilot and thinking about everything else. I know I've done it before. I'm thinking about what comes next. I'm multitasking.
Yeah.
But if I spent my 1 to 2 minutes brushing my teeth and focusing just on that, even if my mind wanders, just bringing it back. Just, gently, non-judgmentally, just bringing it back, focusing on that experience as it is, I'm probably going to have a very different experience with brushing my teeth.
Right.
And if I can start to do that with brushing my teeth, imagine what that looks like at work. Imagine what that looks like with family members. Because you're building those muscles, you can start to be more mindful throughout the day. So that's a lot of me talking, but hopefully all that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Now, I'm going to ask you this just from my own personal, because, this is to help me bump everybody else at this point.
Go for it.
So one of the things that I struggle with is, you talking about the toothbrush and focusing at that point is shutting my mind off, because I'm constantly thinking of things, whether it's my 9 to 5 work, whether it's doing this podcast, whether it's doing all the editing, thinking of my next guest and what am I going to talk about with the next guest. I'm constantly going to bed thinking of all these things. And to the point, if I get up at any point in the middle of the night, my mind instantly goes to thinking of all of these things. Now, I went and bought one of those Bluetooth sleep masks. So my eyes are covered, and I tend to listen to podcasts at night, or sometimes I'll listen to meditation. I've listened to different the vibration tones at night. And I've tried all of those things, and it works for a little bit, and then I get back into the same old boat where I've tried. I can't think of the guy's name, but he tries to talk you to sleep. And so for a couple minutes, I'm listening to every thought where he's, now just imagine yourself in a running river. And by the time he gets to the river, I'm thinking of, okay, so I have to interview this person later at 4:00. And so now I've missed like 15 minutes of what he's talking about, because my mind is already thinking of what I got to do. What are some of the tips and that you would recommend for a person to be able to shut their mind off some and be able to just focus on what they're doing in the present?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're dealing with sort of that overstimulation that's happening throughout the day because you have so many responsibilities. The thing that I would tweak is the expectation, because I've heard that before too, which is I need to turn my brain off. Your brain's never going to turn off, and we don't really want it to until we say goodbye to this mortal coil, right?
Right.
And that's normal. That's natural.
Okay.
The thing that we want to really look at is how can we direct our thinking a little bit more effectively? Because what I'm hearing you say, and I suspect there are a lot of listeners out there where this has happened, and heck, grad school wasn't a cakewalk for me. I had the same thing happen, with dissertation and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so when you notice that you can't even focus on, Joe McSleepy's really nice guided meditation to get you to bed, that is a sign that something is wrong during the day, that there's probably too much stress, too much stimulation. Now, we can look at that and just judge ourselves, right? This is the judgmental piece coming in of, I wish it wasn't that way. What's wrong
Right.
with me? I'm so stupid. I'm
Right.
just a loser. That's not being mindful, right? That's just making things worse, and it's spinning things up.
Right.
We can start to build the mindfulness muscles by focusing on the physical. That's how we can get a little bit more in touch with what are my thought patterns coming up throughout the day? What are my emotions and what are their intensity level? We have to work up to that. So I mentioned the idea about brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a matter of setting an alarm on your phone to check in with yourself. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Sometimes, if you're not quite there and you want to focus on the physical, something as simple as, hey, how does your shirt feel on your skin right now? How does that chair that you're sitting in hold you up? What's that feel like? And I suspect for you, Russ, and for anyone listening who may be sitting in a chair and hopefully wearing a shirt, they probably weren't thinking about those things. I mean, I'm not going to judge. If it's late at night, go take your
We're
shirt
not
off.
judging. Judge free zone here.
If you're listening at work, I don't know what job you have where you're not wearing a shirt, but here we are. But anyways, my point is that you probably weren't thinking about those things until I said something. And then as soon as I said something, your mind was immediately focused on those details. Well, wait a minute. How does that shirt feel on my skin? Yeah, how does this chair feel on my body? Sitting with that for just, again, 10, 15, 20 seconds, you can start to build that up. And and automatically, because the brain likes to be efficient, the mindfulness is then going to start to become your autopilot, right? It's going to start to become that habit, which I know it sounds a little strange, but that's kind of our goal here. We want the mindfulness to be the habit so that you're automatically starting to check in with yourself. Once you have that down with the sensory stuff, checking in with your thoughts, checking in with your emotions, checking in with your behaviors even can be something that will help out a lot. So as an example, when we find ourselves very stressed, we're going to breathe a lot into our chests. And this is useful when we're in very stressful situations because breathing into our chests activates our fight or flight system. Even if you think about working out, right? There's going to be short, shallow breathing. Wonderful. We want that. We probably don't want that when we're checking emails, when we're talking to our boss, right? It's probably not going to help us out all that much. So what I can do instead, when I'm recognizing that I'm breathing shallowly into my chest, not judging myself for it, just recognizing it with mindfulness, I can then change my breathing patterns, which is pulling the air down into my belly. That's going to activate my rest and digest system. For any singers out there, I'm talking diaphragmatic breathing. That kind of thing is going to help slow us down throughout the day. And if I have those autopilot interrupts throughout the day, well, then by the time I get to Joe McSleepy, my mind might not be racing so much.
Okay. Well, one more thing for me, and I do know that we have several listeners that are in the same boat. One of the things that I do from time to time is I may go to different events and I speak on stage. I hate it with a passion. It terrifies me. My anxiety kicks up to a 10. So
don't sugarcoat it. Tell me how you really feel.
Right. And they're like, well, you can do this podcast. Yes, I'm sitting down in my chair and I'm looking at one person, 1 to 2 people. It's not standing on the stage, looking at 50 to, 1,000 people. So it's different, But what do you recommend for people? Because I do know a lot of people that are getting into the stage moments and trying to get more comfortable and doing this. How do you help somebody kind of get through that anxiety moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. And oftentimes the answer is going to need to be a little bit more training than just one or two techniques can do. Because if you're, say, at a 10 out of 10 in that 8 to 10 range, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
That being said, I can give you some practical skills that may help with the behaviors in the moment, but the deeper work that would maybe need to be explored in a therapy room, for example.
Okay.
So when we're in the 8 to 10 range, the logic part of our brain, again, is turning off. So just like you said earlier, we'll just say stop it to someone who's, in 8 to 10, someone who's raging, just calm down. Yeah. Nothing bad will happen with that. So what we need to do instead is we need to focus on the physical, the body, because when we cool the body down, we're going to cool the mind down, because there's a reciprocal relationship there. So I suspect wherever you're speaking, unless you're in the middle of nowhere in some cornfield somewhere, I suspect that there's going to be running water that you can set to cold. Okay. And just like if we were to jump into a pool of cold water, that's going to shock us and calm us down. Well, not necessarily calm us down, because we're going to be in survival mode. Get out of here. But we're not going to be overthinking in that moment. It's just going to be, let me get out of this. And for my Navy veterans in particular, they tend to know what I'm talking about. It's that dive response. We can use that principle to our advantage if we find ourselves in the 8 to 10 range. So splashing cold water on our face, having a cold compress, putting it on our forehead, putting it on the back of our necks. If there's a bowl available, putting some cold water in that. Again, not freezing. I don't want you to hurt yourself, but just cool enough that it's going to cool your body down. If I did that for 30 seconds, which 30 seconds is a lot longer than we think, especially if you and I sat here in silence for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That would be, a surefire, wonderful podcast.
Right. Yeah.
Just 30 seconds of dead air. But
that would be my most listened to.
That's right. But the same is true with the cold water. It's going to cool us down enough that we might be able to, with some additional skills in the 0 to 7 range by practicing mindfulness, come back online and be okay. Now, typically something like that is going to get you from an 8 to 10 down to a 7, maybe a 6. It's not going to bring you down to a 2. That's okay. A 6 or a 7 is uncomfortable, but still manageable.
Right.
Another example that you can use in the moment is that deep breathing that I mentioned. That's something that can help us out. It's cheap as free. We always have it with us. And if you're in 0 all the way up to 10, taking that deep breath into your belly, smooth inhale, smooth exhale, it's going to calm you down just enough. Again, imagine taking, let's say, 20 breaths, which may take a minute, 2 minutes. A minute to 2 minutes of dead air, that's a long time. A minute to 2 minutes of deep breathing, that's also a long time. So those things can help in the moment. The underlying stuff that I'm talking about, maybe there are thought patterns that pop up for people who have trouble with public speaking around, I'm not good enough. I can't handle this. I'm never going to be calm. Yeah. That's where I would explore in a therapy room. Well, where's that coming from? So talk to me about previous experiences when you are doing public speaking. What thoughts come up for you? Can we find a pattern? Was there that one person, in grade school who laughed at you when you gave a book report in front of the class? And for some reason, that just still sticks with you, and you've internalized it as a part of you that, yes, I'm just a bad public speaker. Well, by once again, making these things more conscious via mindfulness, we're better able to tweak them, to challenge them, and to then start to think a little bit more accurately about ourselves. I'm never the guy that's like, let's just think more positively and everything will be fine. If it was that simple, none of us would have problems and I wouldn't have a job. What I'm
So
saying, which would be great, I find something else to do, but what I'm saying is we want to think more accurately about ourselves. Instead of, I'm just a garbage public speaker, maybe it's, I have some good performances, some not so good performances. Overall, I'm, an average public speaker. That's very different from, I'm just a piece of trash and can't handle being in front of a crowd.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. 100%. I definitely appreciate those words. So tell me a little bit about your podcast. I'd love for, the Manspace Nation to be able to tune in and listen to your show. So just tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Absolutely. So it started out, if you can believe it or not, in 2016, end of 2016.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Because I was invited to give a talk. I wasn't a psychologist at the time. I was a master's level clinician. And I was invited to an agency to give a talk on depression. One of the things that they asked me to do was to come up with something people could take with them. And so I decided, well, why not have a brief meditation on depression to just kind of help people get through it. And maybe a couple weeks before, they canceled the event. So here I am with this meditation and not really knowing what to do with it, but I always liked listening to podcasts. So I decided, why not just put this up and see what happens? And that's how Meditations by Gregory T. Obert was born. And for many years, I did every other week of posting free guided meditations. It could just be something to help relax somebody. It could be something to work through a deeper issue. For example, I've had ones on grief. I've had ones on self-love. And I posted mostly consistently over the last 9 years. But ever since I opened my practice, as you mentioned at the top, Royal Oasis Psychotherapy Institute, I decided to start filling in the off weeks with additional topics. So that initially started as a Therapy 101 series. So for people who don't really know much about therapy or how certain disorders can show up in people's lives, I created a whole series on that. And then I ran out of ideas for the series. So I decided, what better time than to start doing the thing that I like listening to, which is interviews. So I've started to have people on the show in the off weeks. And in fact, I'm not sure when this episode is going up, but you and I will have an interview at some point. You've generously agreed to come on, and I'm looking forward to that very much.
Absolutely.
So it's really a mix of these guided meditations and then these discussions from people who I think can bring a lot of wisdom and knowledge to the table around mental health, around wellness, and sometimes even spirituality when people feel comfortable enough to talk about that. So it's been good. It's been happening for a long time, and I've had people reach out over the years telling me how wonderful the meditations have been. In fact, very recently, I had someone in England even reach out and say, I've been listening to you since day one. I'm like, that's amazing.
That
like
is
even the
awesome.
Yeah, because there was I said mostly consistently, because there was maybe about 9 months in grad school where I just kind of fell off the face of the earth. And he's like, yeah, I listened through that. I listened after. So it's really rewarding and heartwarming to know that, my simple meditations that started out in, a basement have reached so many people and have helped them out a lot.
Wow, tremendous. How can people find you and follow you, on social media or their website, and be able to get more information about you and your practice?
Absolutely. So the best place to go is my practice website, Royal Oasis Psychotherapy Institute. But rather than make you type all that out, I did royaloasispi.com. You can learn all about the therapy that I do virtual therapy. I'm licensed in 43 states and some US territories. So if you're interested in diving deeper, getting that customized treatment plan, I can help you out. I'm happy to work with you. Sorry to the 7 states that aren't part of PsyPact. Eventually they'll get on board, I think. On my website too is my podcast. There's also links to my book, links to live streams that I do, including a dark psychology series where I talk about the dark psychology of people, gaming videos I do with my wife.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
yeah, everything is on that website. It's the best touch point, as well as the best place to get in contact with me over email. But you can also find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and X and Instagram.
All right. So gaming videos, I have to ask. So what's your go-to?
So I've been gaming for much of my life.
Mhm.
For the streams, it's been usually something more actiony. So right now
Okay.
we are making our way through Resident Evil 9,
Oh,
and
wow.
neither my
Okay.
wife nor I have played it. So the zombies are jump scaring us like none other, helping with the reaction reels, you know. So if you want to
Yeah.
see me and my wife lose our minds over zombies, definitely check us out on YouTube or Rumble.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, are you a console or a PC gamer?
I've been a console gamer my whole life, but obviously
Okay.
with streaming, it's much easier to do on PC. So
Yeah.
I've switched over to PC Master Race, as they say,
Mhm.
about a year and a half ago,
Mhm.
and I haven't looked back. So, but
Okay.
yes, the channel is because I had to make it as punny as possible. The game Oberts. So that is our that's our handle.
All right. Well, I won't knock you for PC. I was good. I was gonna say, all right, which console are you? Because it was gonna determine whether or not this interview ended
Uh-oh.
abruptly or not.
Xbox, more like ex guest. Get out of here.
So I have one last thing for you, and it's
Yes,
something
sir.
that we love to call the last word.
And now, the last word.
So bringing this all the way back around to men and psychology and getting therapy and help. A lot of times there is a stereotype with men
Mhm.
that seeing a therapist is a sign of weakness. What do you say to contradict that stereotype?
I don't know if it's even contradicting. I would just say dispelling it, because
Yes.
I wouldn't even call it a stereotype. It's a myth.
Hmm.
To me, what is harder is dealing with problems that you can't quite overcome on your own.
Right.
And I know that men are told to be independent, do your thing, and just soldier on. But the truth is, it takes a lot more courage and a lot more strength to reach out to someone that you may not know very well and say,
Right.
hey, I'm not doing well, and I could really use the help. I hear this a lot, in particular with the veterans that I work with. And when they come into the treatment program, which I work on PTSD in a trauma unit,
Yeah.
there's so much shame and guilt around it. And even in outpatient work that I do, there's shame and guilt around, oh, I have to see
Yeah.
someone. But the truth is that it's not a shameful thing to say I just need help. So for
Yeah.
those out there that are thinking it's a weakness, I would encourage you to maybe start to think about why it's a weakness in mental health, but maybe in other areas of your life, it's actually a strength to reach out to
Yeah.
someone, to collaborate.
Love it. Love it. And on that, you can't close any stronger than that. So I appreciate those words. That was a great ending to this episode. Dr. Gregory, thank you so much for spending time with us. This has been a tremendous and eye-opening episode. Very informational filled episode of the Man Space podcast. And I appreciate you spending the time with us, and much success with the show, the gaming channel, and everything else that you're doing. Manspace Nation, make sure you go check out his website. Make sure you go check out the gaming, listen to the podcast, and let's just, continue to push all of this forward. And, and if you're in a situation and you need help, here's the man that can help you. So check him out. Dr. Gregory, as we close out, thank you so much. And Manspace Nation, we are out of here.
No gimmicks, just game that my sure in sight. They shine like the city on a Friday night. Man talk, real talk, that's the way that you bless. Giving knowledge and some laughs in the same finesse. From life goes to the jokes that hit. They the tag team champs, yeah, legit with the wit. So pull up a chair, let the stress digest. From the beat drops, you know the rest. You go chillin' with